With the introduction of choice specs, Tentacruel can finally be immediately threatening. No assembly required. This Tentacruel is a special attacker with rapid spin utility, a lot like Starmie, but without the somewhat burdening psychic typing. Tentacruel isn't automatically killed by Pursuit T-Tar, and it has some other niche defensive utility against threats like Celebi or Breloom. Access to Sludge Bomb is a nice differentiating factor as well. Magma Storm Heatran is lead of choice on this team thanks to its nice matchup against the best lead in the metagame, Metagross. Dragon Pulse and Explosion are also quite nice against anti-leads like Dragonite or Flygon, and it allows the team to fire out of the gates at a fast pace. Against slower paced teams, or teams that really want to run away from Magma Storm, Heatran can throw out Stealth Rocks on the switch and catch momentum for the team before exploding. Trick Room Bronzong is here to pile on the pressure while enabling its best friend, Machamp. Bronzong is a great stop to dangerous attackers like Gyarados, Tyranitar, and Gengar. It can take a hit, set up a Trick Room, and take something with it. Explosion pretty much guarantees a KO, while Zen Headbutt was chosen specifically for consistent damage on Rotom forms, a huge stop to this offensive team. Machamp is a huge threat on this team, and it also acts as an emergency tech to large swaths of the metagame thanks to Cuss Stat Barrier. With Dynamic Punch and Ice Punch providing great coverage, Machamp can absolutely wreck house in a Trick Room, creating an immensely powerful mid-game. Substitute Health rounds out this set, both the punch switches, such as when it comes in on Tyranitar, as well as work its way down into Cuss Stat Barrier range for later in the game. Piling on the offense, we picked up an interesting sweeper, Agility Zapdos. We decided to equip it with Expert Belt to help cut down on recoil, and this coverage is pretty great for the tier. Common choice scarfers like Flygon and Latias are outsped and beaten down by Zapdos, allowing for a great late game threat. It also provides the team with another ground immunity, which is great given the team's otherwise weakness to Earthquake once Bronzong goes down. Lastly, Choice Scarf Tyranitar rounds out the team for trapping obnoxious threats like Starmie, Rotom, Gengar, and Latias. This Tyranitar hits 351 speed, letting it outspeed Rotom, Latias, and Gengar. The additional EVs go into special defense, letting it take a Starmie water move in a pinch, allowing this Tyranitar to play a bit fast and looser than most of the variants. Punch mostly there due to how often people like to stay in on Tyranitar Pursuit. The other moves provide great coverage for revenge killing and threatening common balls.
Overall, the team did pretty great. Tyranitar was an excellent trapper for ghost types and Latias, and Tentacruel did great as a special wall breaker. Being able to find switching opportunities thanks to its great bulk was nice, and legitimately threatened a lot of Pokemon like Bronzong and Scizor. Machamp and Bronzong helped push this team into success, with their amazing defensive synergy being the highlight of most of our games. Heatran was a decent enough lead as well, and Zapdos was a little underwhelming at times, but the team did well. And they set us up for great success in the weather generation.
Gen 5. Here kicks off Tentacruel's best generation, and its bromance with Ferrothorn that would continue throughout the generations. Protect is here to get an obnoxious amount of health back under Rain with Rain Dish. Rapid Spin is for hazard control, and Toxic is for common switch-ins, primarily the Slowbros and Slowking, Gastrodon, Jellicent, and even Keldeo and Latios on offensive teams. And Scald badly needs a nerf, so it's here too. Tentacruel never leaves home without his two best friends, Politoed for rain setup, and defensive Ferrothorn. Politoed is the typical defensive set, with Protect and Refresh for longevity, as well as Encore for utility. This is particularly nice for annoying threats like Reuniclus on Sandstall and Substitute Keldeo. Ferrothorn is the typical hazard setter, packing both Spikes and Stealth Rock for roll compression. For how essential Ferrothorn is in the metagame, Protect was slotted in also to scout for coverage and tricks from its common victims. Lead Sheet is here in place of an attacking move to help support his teammates and provide switch-in opportunities. It is very vulnerable to taunt, but its supporting cast helps shore this weakness up. Terrakion is on this team as some insurance against opposing weather, sand offense and sun. Scarf Terrakion outspeeds almost every Pokemon in these styles of teams, and is great at helping to revenge kill offense, and it gets many more switch-in opportunities than one may assume, thanks to all the immunities and resistances that this defensive core of this team packs. Gastrodon is the dedicated offensive ranger, helping to body opposing Keldeo and Thundurus, and even Gyarados on ambitious teams. It's great at slowing down the pace of Dragmag, not only finding free switch-ins on Magnezone, but also packing Ice Beam to beat Dragonite and Garchomp in a 1v1. Its recovery is also essential in helping to be a stopgap for physical offense. Rounding out the offensive side of the team is Agility Thundurus, and after the agility goes off, it outspeeds pretty much everything in the game, and with Life Orb attached, it hits some great damage thresholds, like doing over 60% to Latios, which is very doable with Stealth Rock support alone. It beats down common special walls like Jellicent and Starmie, and in general, is difficult to stop unless there's a Gastrodon or Quagsire on the opposing team. It rounds off the team's offense, and it does it quite well. In Gen 5, weather was absolutely broken, and rain was one of, if not the most powerful weather. As such, Tentacruel was in a powerful position, and this team ended up 8-2. It is able to overpower most opposing rain teams, and Terrakion and Thundurus overpower Dragonite teams, which are quite popular due to their simple, one-dimensional game plan. Terrakion also helped against opposing sand offense as intended, and our only two losses were both to Sandstall. Raindish and Scald worked together to make Tentacruel powerful on both offense and defense, and made him quite the good Pokemon in this gen.
In 6, Tentacruel reprises its role as a utility spinner, this time by donning the new Assault Vest. Its special bulk is absolutely filthy, going over 400 with investment. This allows it to absolutely demolish Clefable, one of the most popular Pokemon in the tier, as well as other threats like Gengar, Heatran, Manaphy, and Volcanion, while still providing great defensive flexibility against defensive cores with Slowbro, Chansey, and Tangrowth. To properly wall everything though, Tentacruel needs to enlist its best friend Ferrothorn once again. They cover each other's weaknesses amazingly well, and Ferrothorn helps to contribute to the hazard war. Power Whip was picked up this time around though, as having a consistent way to pressure Rotom Wash was just too important to pass up on. Rounding out the defensive team is Clefable. Both walls lack any reliable recovery, especially with Hazard Stacking and Knockoff being incredibly prominent, so this Clefable slots in the Wish to support its team. Thunderwave helps to provide opportunities for offensive setup, and Moonblast is the move of choice for consistent damage. This does lend a lot of free setup to Ferrothorn, but with the offensive team in the back, it's not a huge concern. The somewhat niche Charizard Dex is the mega choice of this team, thanks to its ability to boost its speed. It's not a traditional Charizard Dex though, as Bruce is amazingly good against Mega Scizor and Metagross, two of the most common Megas. It provides some defensive flexibility while also giving it opportunities to accrue multiple Dragon Dances in the face of Slowbro or even Clefable. And Flare Blitz and Dragon Claw hit everything in the tier except for Heatran, which Loose Blitzes have a chance at winning against. Piling on the offense is the terribly scary Life Orb Bisharp with the Sword Sand set. This is the common set for a reason. It blasts pretty much everything in the tier away while giving some insurance against Defog and Sticky Lips. Lastly is the Augmented Gengar. It's a spin blocker, which is nice for an offensive Pokemon, but more importantly is that it forces a lot of switches and can be extremely threatening. Focus Blast and Sludge Bomb threaten most Pokemon, and with Substitute and Disable to force switches, Gengar can shift the opposing team into Bisharp range amazingly quickly, while potentially nabbing a KO as well. It rounds out the physical offense and helps to force defensive cores into compromising positions. Overall, it's a great Pokemon.
The team overall did quite well, and while Tentacruel wasn't a hero or particularly outstanding in most games, it did its job amazingly consistently. Hazards were never a huge problem in the majority of the time, and Tentacruel offered some extra security against some important calm minders. Thorthorn did his job equally well, and the offensive trio put in work on a consistent basis, all finding their chance to smash holes in the opposing team when the opening presented itself. Clefable was a bit lackluster as a wish passer, but that's generally more indicative of wish passing in general than Clefable's specific talents. Tentacruel still missed its dream though, but fortunately a certain bird would bring it back in the next generation.